Okay, so today we're going to be joined by my good friend and longtime contributor to our blog, Mr. Nick Starchuk. How are you, Nick?
Hey, really good. Thanks for having me on again.
It's good to see you. We both aged, you've aged gracefully.
Yeah, it's been 12, 15 years since the last one, I think.
Yeah, I was looking at it right now. It was 2011, so that's 14 years.
Yep.
Quite a
Wow.
time, quite a long time, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were talking, I guess I was introduced to you by Dan Carraher. I teach. Yeah, and back then there was quite a bit of disruption going on in the golf industry, the golf instruction industry per se. And, launch monitors were coming out and all kinds of equipment on how to quantify movements and weight shifts and pressure shifts and ball flights. And, a lot of what was conventionally taught throughout the years was some of it was disproven and all that. So I would consider you one of the whiz kids. There were a bunch of guys about your age that were just, on the scene, on in the forums, debating the things and bringing a new light to an old problem, right?
It was huge. I mean, there were multiple forums with, there were a lot of the same people bouncing around from forum to forum, but there was an age of 4 or 5 years where, you know, you really could learn a lot by listening to what was going on in there. But you're right, it was a time of disruption.
Um, it was disruption and it was dynamic. So what's cool about it is that every other month there was something new coming out or somebody with some different philosophy and debates and arguments about how things would go. And I think in a guy in your case that would be the perfect timing. You know what I mean? Like I said the same thing to Andreas Cali, and you guys were coming up and setting forth at the perfect time when things were changing and there were a lot of new discoveries and et cetera, et cetera.
I think
Yes.
we were finally getting like some answers to things where, if you did it again, you got predictability. I don't want to say consistency, but like if you did XYZ and you did it again, it happened this the ball did the same thing. You I think it was a time where people had so many aha moments that they couldn't wait to share them, but they also couldn't wait to be the one to be tagged to make that aha moment.
Right, right. But and there was a lot of people trying to disprove things that, it was good. It was good banter. It was good banter. You
It was
know.
educational. At the very least, it was educational. So I
Yeah.
thought it was great.
So, it's been what, 14 years, as I said, I think. So there are a lot of people out there, and, I'm restarting the blog. So, um, and I had mentioned this to John Erickson yesterday. His kid says, "Oh wow!" His father had told him about this blog, and now I guess he's a college golfer, and he wants, it's like the talk of the conversation and the father son conversation
Nice.
about ancient history type of thing. So I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your trajectory in golf and how you got to where you are now. I mean, you just told me you were in Jamaica.
I am. So I have been
You
teaching in
got-
Jamaica for almost 20 years now.
Yeah, you got there by plane.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that
Well, so I would say 2004 was when I really started to get teaching, busy teaching golf. It's when I started to have a calendar and it was starting to get full. I was really lucky. I brought into an academy in Toronto that was really popular. It was really busy. They had built a machine of corporate events and clinics and camps where I just put myself in play and I got my reps in, so to say, in terms of teaching. So I spent 4 years there and 3 of those years were with Sean Foley on the range too. So not only did I get my reps learning how to teach, I got to listen to someone with his type of wisdom. And then I started to move on to some stuff in the States. I worked with a gentleman named Gary Gilchrist for a while at a junior golf boarding school, which is it's just an absolutely cool environment to be in where, the kids go to school in the morning and they train all afternoon and they play tournaments on the weekends. Really awesome environment. And that really taught me that it was a lot more about the environment to teach these players than the actual coaching involved. So when I came back to Canada, I worked at a few private clubs. I've worked at some public courses. And what I found is that, the better the environment you create for the players around you, the more that they succeed. And I see it with all the other academies around, that when some players are playing great and the environment around is really strong, that lots of players flourish. And so you could kind of say that that's almost a philosophy that I have, is that creating the environment to learn and to practice and to train and to enjoy it with fun, all of that stuff, that's what I've learned. And so now I am 20 years teaching full time, still in Toronto, and my busy season is the summer, May and June and July. I've got 3 months where I run golf schools, and I'll run 100 golf schools in 3 months, and still try and get in about 100 rounds a year. So those are my metrics I go off of every year.
Where are you, Trial?
Right now I am in Half Moon Resort in Montego Bay.
Okay, yeah. Once upon a time, this guy named Butch used to own Air Jamaica, and he flew us out there to Trial. And Trial, they would play, I think, the Tournament of Champions, where they had like all the 4 major winners. And so I did go out there once. Now,
Trial's pretty cool.
Yeah. When you mentioned the environment, right? So I'm in Juan Dolio. Now, I guess 12, 15 minutes west of me is San Pedro de Macorís. So that's like the shortstop incubator of the world, right? It's a Major League shortstop headquarters. And now, they started, and it's like a pretty old town. It's a lot of ghettos and a lot of whatever. And the kids started playing with, fielding balls with milk cartons and making balls out of whatever and yada, yada, yada. Now we have 20, and I think every major league team has a baseball academy here. And it's similar to what you're talking about, where, my buddy has a free agent academy, which is not affiliated with any major league team. He's actually Canadian also. And it's like you're signing these kids, they're 8, 9 years old, not 8 or 9, but, once they see you're throwing a certain speed, then you're going to giving you an education. They're feeding you and they're training. I think that environment, just like you said, the environment, and you have guys that are progressing at a certain level, and the guy next to him sees him, wait a second, I got to get my ducks in a row, and brings up the level of, intent.
I think that's it in a nutshell. I don't know any other sport where athletes don't get better because they want to beat the next guy that's beside them.
Exactly.
And then you just keep getting different people beside you to be better then. So the environment is everything to give the player the opportunity to see that and to have that. And that's why some of the better academies that I've seen have a tiered kind of program. You could call it like a junior program and a senior program, where the juniors keep looking up to the seniors. Oh, I can't wait to get there. Right. And then the seniors have their eye on something else that they want to get there. But you always see that thing that's above you or where you want to be. That to me is how you excel at being a golfer, being in that.
And then what happens is the one that actually makes it and signs a contract comes back, gets all the accolades and everything. And all these kids are like, wait a second, that could be me.
Right. When I was at the Gilchrist Academy, he had just sent Morgan Hoffman to the tour. So there was 100 kids that said, well, Morgan did it last year. I guess we can do it here.
Yeah. This guy was right next to me a few months ago, and here he is on his way to Major League Baseball. That's cool. So let's touch on some of the topics that, so I want to try to get your definition of coaching versus teaching.
I kind of look at teaching this is where you work on the golf swing. Here's some instruction, here's a goal, here's an outcome, kind of go and do it. Where coaching is a little bit more of, getting ready to go practice or what to practice or, all the other things that go into it. So, coaching takes a look at everything and teaching is somewhere in between all of that. And I think that there might be a little bit of a, they're almost interchanged to some people. Some people feel as though, well, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, oh, it's the same thing. Well, I think there's a big difference. I think that, if I looked at Andy Plummer, for example, I think he's the best teacher that we have in North America at the moment. And you could look at someone who might be a performance coach who evaluates your stats and your nutrition and your sleep patterns. There's a coach. And I think that a player needs one of those at specific times. And don't get me wrong, people can wear both hats. It's not that hard. But being able to understand when the player needs what. You don't make a swing change before you're playing a tournament. That's kind of when you need the cheerleading side of things. So that would be the difference. It's like, it's trying to get people to do, the best thing all the time versus, hey, we need to tweak something over here and I need to give you a lesson. That would be my definition. I find it personally very difficult to coach golf because if you break it down, you start looking at like you're coaching somebody, you're coaching a person, right? In golf. Well, not everybody's coachable. Not everybody is ready to change the pieces that are required to make that big of a change. Where when it comes to teaching, you can get someone on a driving range who's got the face super closed and you can get it a little more into a better spot and get them making a couple really good moves where they hit the ball better. Great. Awesome lesson. I'll chat with you for the next week to see how things are going. How's the practice? Are you hitting balls? And if you want to meet up again to see how it's going, terrific. However, I really think that the difference between the two is like the person versus the golfer. That's the biggest thing. I personally find it tough to coach golf because you have to coach a person, and that life coaching thing is extremely difficult.
Well, I think that, and here's my take on this, right? So a coach can guide you, or a teacher. The teacher can guide you, can show you, can instruct you, right? But he can't practice for you. He can't, the makeup, people are all made up differently. And we all have our own emotional approaches to everything, right? I personally am a ball beater. If you told me, so when Sean Foley told Tiger he had to make this backswing change, right? And he needed, I don't know how many repetitions, right? He expected him back in a month and he comes back like 2 days later, I'm done. So that's one type of person, right? You got the laid back personality. He says, time's on my side. I got a bunch of time to do this. Or, and then there's people who don't listen, right?
Right. Like, how easy do you think it would have been, Ralph, to coach Kobe Bryant? How easy do you think that would have been? Right? Hey, Kobe, I think tomorrow morning we need to get up at 6 and work out. I'll be getting up at 4. Okay, I think we need to, eat better. I already eat well. Like, it's not hard to coach that guy, but to take someone that is challenging, who is basically all of the golf and all the golf lesson takers that guys like me teach, these are just people trying to get better at golf. They're not looking for a life-changing coaching moment.
Right.
But I do think that if that player shows up at a golf course and there's someone there that, calls himself the PGA Pro, and they're going to coach that person into coachable things without touching on why it is their golf ball's not going the right way, that's where I think our industry gets weird, because you didn't really help that person hit the ball better, but you got them into a good pre-shot routine. We have to make sure, I think, that when you look at the golfer, that you give them the appropriate thing when they need it, teaching versus coaching.
Yeah, I think also that people take lessons for a myriad of reasons. And I'm telling you, because I was the general manager of probably the number one range in America at one point. And, there were married women that would come in there and just take a lesson out of loneliness. Well, they just wanted somebody to talk to. It's tough. It's not easy. It's not easy. And people go in there and that they don't have, or they don't possess the tools to get a ball airborne. Yet you have to spend an hour with them trying to get the most out of it, or let them get the most out of it. Make sure they walk away with something yeah. So what would you say your philosophy is on swing technique?
I struggle with this question sometimes because I'm not quite sure how to relate, how to discuss my philosophy. I think I have to say that I look at the person in front of me and the golfer and what they want to do, and what can I do to get them there the fastest? Is it
Right.
going to be striking the ball better? Is it going to be making the move that they currently make and just do that more often? I really like to try and get to one point and work on it and make sure that that improves. So if someone comes to me for a lesson and, they want to get better at golf, we try and identify the one thing that they need to do. Okay, we need to control your curve, we need to hit it more solid, we need to hit it farther, probably one of those three things. And we're going to spend the next X amount of time only working on that. You're not going to come back in 2 weeks and all of a sudden we're going to work on the latest fad on the internet. We're just going to work on this one thing. And if you can get this one thing done, you might be happy enough and satisfied enough to go off and play golf and everything's great. No problem at all. Or you might be that type of person that's thirsty to say, wow, Nick got me to this step. Maybe I can get a little bit better with something else. What's the next step that he wants to go through? Maybe I need to hit it farther. Maybe it's putting, maybe it's short game. Who knows? But it's just trying to identify that one thing first. So my philosophy is fairly simple. I try to get them to hit the ball better within their own personal means and try to make it fun.
That's probably the only way to go about it. I mean, if you have like a scratch golfer, right? You're going to take one approach versus a high handicapper versus a guy that has an outing, some kind of corporate outing, who hasn't touched the golf club in 15 years and he's just looking to advance it, right? So you have to wear 10 different hats, right? And
sure. And, that golfer is the most challenging because, you could take 2 or 3 different approaches and they're both sound and rational. Does the person come with an absolutely terrible grip, but they're only going to play one time and it's tomorrow? Do you work with it? Or do you say, no, let's fix it. Let's make it right. And, this is good for you for the long run. I don't know which one's better, but they both sound good. So
right.
that lesson's difficult. But when you get someone like a scratch golfer, it gives me an opportunity to actually start thinking of things in a different way. And one of the best questions that I've ever asked myself or asked other instructors is, if a golfer came to you and wanted to get better, but you weren't allowed talking about the golf swing, what do you do? Where do you go? Right? And this is where I think online lessons can be kind of exciting because you're not necessarily with that player all the time. You get the odd video, but if you've actually thought about that question, how do you make a golfer better if you weren't allowed discussing the swing? Right? Where do you go? It could be so many different places. And I think that if you do get a better player, a mini tour player, someone who's trying to do this for a career, what a great place to start. I mean, their swings got them this far. The idea that your magic pill is going to get them farther, it's not really going to work. It's probably going to be a series of small things that are going to get them further ahead. Is it going to be nutrition? Is it going to be fitness? Is it going to be just the inputs you put in? Are you reading the right things, seeing the right things? Are you spending the right amount of time? I think that we gain our confidence by checking off a lot of our to-do list or our the things that we think we have to do. And, if a good player wants to get really good and they write down a list of things that they need to do to get better and they do them all, holy geez, is that ever confident building? Because what else can I do now? So I love that question and that whole idea of trying to improve that player, recognizing how they hit it and where they hit it. You don't have to change the golf swing if you realize, hey, you clearly miss a lot of shots left. If you're curving the ball left, we need to get something to switch a little bit or change a little bit. You need to do something. You don't necessarily need to give a swing lesson, right? You just need to kind of give a player perspective of their game. You have to give them a different view of, hey, if you did it this way, I think things might really change in the outcome. And like I said, fitness, nutrition, stat tracking, recognizing your dispersion patterns. There's so much out there that I think that we kind of get stuck on the initial introductory session with a player is down the line with your phone, taking their video. That's the first step. And, when I do some things here in Jamaica, which I've been doing for almost 20 years now, I like to get people on the golf course first. Go ahead and warm up. I'm going to warm up beside you. I'll watch you hit a few. Let's go on the golf course to see how you play. And then once I see what kind of shots you have and what kind of ways you miss it, we can then build some type of program maybe. But sometimes it's hard to get someone on the driving range for an hour and get an accurate reading of what they're doing. They could be scared to death that they're standing there in front of you. They could have a bad day. They might not feel, who knows what it is. But you're on the golf course for 4 hours. You get to see those flashes, and from there you can kind of, again, max those out or make the changes that you see that might necessarily be required.
Yeah, I mean, so you have a pretty, I think it's a pretty solid approach to doing it, and that's probably why you're successful. It's probably why you're sitting in Jamaica now.
I think that like I've always tried to kind of like what does a good lesson look like? And no matter how much structure or things that I want to do in that lesson or for that lesson, it really comes down to what that player needs and what they can hear and what they can soak in. People can only take in so much. If my studio at home in Toronto has gears and slow motion cameras all over and foresight to measure all the golf club stuff and the ball and like there's everything. And I think that could be almost an overload to someone if you put it all together at one time. So I think that my evolution or how I've evolved in this is that like it's now like I feed off of what that person is able to do, what I think that they can do. And that's how I run with it. It's all about them.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It is about them, and you can't internalize it and try to make it happen your way. It's only what they can absorb and retain and react to. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay,
Exactly
so
right.
you just told me about your studio in Toronto. Mentioned a whole lot of technology, gears, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I nerded out on this. My studio is in my home.
Yeah.
So it's close by and I get to play around a lot. I hit a lot of golf balls. I play a lot of rounds of golf every year and I use it as much as anybody else does.
You use it on yourself. So let me ask you a question. So I'm listening to your pragmatic approach to giving lessons, right? And your philosophy seems to be more about an intimate exchange between you and the student. And it seems to be working. Where does all this gear, I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Like, where do you draw the line from? Well, I guess it depends on the individual in front of you. Again, I mean, if I went to see you, I don't want to listen. I want to put me on gear. Let's see what's up.
I think some people ask for it, but when I jump into my okay, let's talk about your swing, and I kind of get that, might give my animated lesson to the person. I'm reading them the whole time. I'm reading them to see how much they're taking in, how much they want to hear it. And if I see them kind of look around and maybe they're tuning off, I switch it up and I start talking about something different. Or, I get their attention. I touch them. I say their name. I always want to have that like eye contact and I want them engaged in what I'm saying. So if the more engaged that I get and, animated, and I'm bouncing around and talking and whatever, if they're feeding off that, then I know I can take things up and take it to another spot. We could do something else. I might be able to encourage them. Hey, why don't we jump on gears? But if that's not what I'm feeling from them, then we just won't do it. I won't even bring it up. If they ask, what are these for? I'm like, oh, it's a 3D suit. And I can look at them. And if they roll their eyes, they'll never do it. No problem. It's not for them. So I can feed off them. And I kind of like, once I get an idea of what they want and how thirsty they are for this getting better stuff, I introduce it. And it could be anything. I could introduce them to somebody else. Hey, this person's really, really good at teaching short game. Why don't you go hang out with them for a little bit? Or this person's really good at putting. They've got this, Tour Read putting app. Drive up the street, go to see this person, and they can go and help you with some putting. So I'm great at giving the person what I think that they want. And if they eat it, great, I'll give them more.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, that's being selfless. In other words, hey, look, go down the block and he can probably help you. Yeah, that's absolute. So where do you think we are with technology? I mean, right now, I could say there's people that use it as a crutch, right? And they'll put you on there and spit out numbers and do this and do that. And there's other people that apply it in other ways, and it seems to get results. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think that like the technology and how people are squeezing the grip, that's going to be a huge one. I know Golf Pride's got some stuff and there's some new stuff out there that wraps onto a grip and you can tell where you're squeezing, how much each hand. I think that's going to be the next stage until they come out with some type of hat that tells you what I'm thinking. Like unless we start getting into what is the player's intention, I'm not really sure we need any more technology. We've figured out what the club does. We understand how the ball flies. We've got enough information for 99.5% of golfers on how the body works. Our club fitting is through the roof extraordinaire. Like, we're good. I think that, we can use these tools the way we need to. If we keep coaching the people and help the people get better as a golfing athlete, that's where we can go as well, whatever the technology is around there. But I think that with the new online world of virtual golf lessons and feeding off information coming from my phone, like, that's the next step of technology. I don't think it's going to be in a swing and how you play. It's going to be how you learn. That's where I think it's going to go in the future, where it is and where it's going to keep going.
It's going to be a matter of the communication. And what, it's opening up, again, it opened up the whole world. So I could
did for sure.
Botswana and say, hey, I want to listen with Nick. Let me hook up. Now with Starlink, everyone's got internet. So
I know.
But what we haven't touched on the one dimension, and that's T. So you got X, Y, and Z, right? T. Mm-hmm. So time is time. I'm going to venture to say that nobody's ever made the same golf swing twice in their life.
Never seen someone throw the same foresight numbers up ever. Not ever. Like when I mean ever, I mean I have a junior that's hit, I don't know, 100,000 balls on my machine. No, not one. Not one is the same.
Yeah, it's
you can have a zero path and a zero face, and all of a sudden the angle of attack's different by 0.1.
Yeah.
Different. So it is totally different. And I think that when we see all this information that we get, when we can evaluate the trend of, this is kind of where you trend. You lean to these sides in certain parameters. Great. Stick to it. Make that work for you.
Yeah, I think that, though, in a round of golf, you're going to step up to the ball, right? And you're whatever, you might have some routine, blah, blah, blah. You get up to the ball, and that's all that counts, is that 1 second, I guess, is probably the total of, I don't know how much time it is, but yeah, it's in my, I think it's more mental at that point. You should have your mechanics worked out, and they're not going to, nobody's going to, at my level at least, and I hover somewhere between a 7 and a 4 handicap, right? And I find it hard to make the same swing twice. I don't know. It's so much.
And to be honest, do you really need to make the same swing twice? I mean, if I hit a drive down the fairway and then I'm hitting a knockdown wedge to the hole, I don't want to make the same swing twice. Right. I think golf, I don't want to be consistent. I want to be adaptable. I want to be able to hit a 8-iron 150 yards from the ball below my feet to a tucked pin, but also do it from 160 with the ball above my feet. I want to be able to do it all. So I think that we have to stop chasing consistency or repeatability, to the T, and, right. Just understand that, okay, when you're on a driving range and it's flat, it does this. But when you get a slope on the golf course, which is, real life, it's going to do this. And, you learn to adapt. You learn to deal with the situation and hit it. And dealing with the situation means accepting what you just did and move on to the next one.
Right. It's always the next shot. Right. I hit it like shit, but it's on the green, and I like to sit there and obsess why,
I try to play golf. I want to be the golfer with the best post-shot routine.
Yeah, post-shot, exactly. The best celebration.
It all starts with the post-shot routine.
Absolutely. So right now, what, we have this teaching model where, it gets busy and people's budgets, and, you get, I guess where I was is half-hour lessons, 1-hour lessons, a series of 5, right? And you have a different viewpoint on that. Can you expound on that?
Yeah. I know that's how golf lessons are sold. 30 minutes, 1 hour, maybe multiple hours, but I've never understood why it is that someone's learning is based on the hour that I want to sell them. So over COVID, we had difficulty doing lessons as everybody did. And I broke my full day golf schools down to half days. So I had 4 people for 4 hours. And yeah, that might be a lot, but 2.5 hours might not be enough. And this gave us a chance to talk about things, to take a look at what the player's doing, to get a good idea on some practice, let them beat some balls for a while and ask, hey, by the way, I've got questions. What about this? And I'm right there to supervise it, to get them right back on track. And then they hit more balls. So, if you look at a tour coach doesn't teach these guys by the hour.
Right.
And we all want to be tour players. So, that's never really kind of flown with me. Now, when I do indoor lessons, I will schedule the person for an hour, but I usually say, hey, I don't stop at an hour if we're doing things. Like if things are flowing and you're getting it and we're moving on, I'm going to keep pushing it because it's about that person's lesson. And I don't want, like you said, XYZ and time. I don't want the time that I give them to have an influence on their learning. That just doesn't seem right. If it's about the player, it's got to be about their time as well. So that's why I really like these 4-hour schools where I can get 4 players out and give them a chance to, try stuff out, listen to the lesson, watch what I'm doing with other people, maybe listen to what I'm doing, hear something and move on. And, that was a model that I learned from Andy Plummer and Mike Bennett schools, from Mac O'Grady schools. It was a very different way than a golf school where you sit in chairs and you watch a demonstration and you get 3 times to do it in front of everybody. That's not what those guys did. And that's not what I do. Like when I was doing golf schools over COVID at TPC Toronto, we would go through garbage cans a day. And that's how we would measure how many balls we hit. 1 garbage can, 2 garbage cans, 3 garbage cans, like tons and tons of golf balls. And, were their hands sore the next day? For sure. But did they finally get a chance to hit a lot of shots where you're not worried about paying for a next bucket, where you're hitting off really good grass and it's being supervised by someone that can keep you on a pretty good track? Like that environment, which I started the whole conversation with, is what I find is the key to successful lessons for me.
Right. Now, again, going back to the environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have 4 people, you're addressing one specific person, the other guy's listening. So you're getting a lot of cross education there. You know what I mean? I think that's really a really valid model for communicating your thoughts. You can go from person to person. If they're all paying attention, they're going to learn something, right?
And the feedback that I consistently get is that I make the people feel at ease because of how I talk to them. So when I do a school, there's a really good chance that I know one of the 4 people, they've come before, and that's who I'll start with. And the other people can see my interactions, trying to keep it fun, trying to keep it easy, making sure we celebrate the right stuff. And so when I move on to that next person who's never had a chance to, work with me before, they say, wow, like I wasn't nervous, like you put me at ease. So being able to have that with all those people there, like they get to see a view of me, even though I'm not talking to them. They get an environment that they feel comfortable in.
Okay. Do you know Robert, the head pro at Casa de Campo? Have you met him?
Bertel, for sure.
Bertel? Okay, cool.
Yeah. He was the head pro at English Turn in New Orleans.
In Louisiana.
Right, where Brian Manzella is.
Manzella is, yeah. But Manzella was at English Turn also, wasn't he?
Yeah, they were there together.
I had a conversation with him. I used to go there often back, 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
There's one shirt there. Beautiful shirt. I went there 2 seasons, the same shirt still sitting there. The lady in the prunk shop doesn't want to give me a discount. I said, listen, So I started talking to Robert, and I mentioned Manzella, and Jim McLean just happened to be there also. So, yeah. Yeah. And so where do you think golf instruction is right now at this moment?
Where do I think golf instruction is right now? I think it's a cool place. It's in a wild, wild west kind of a place because everybody can put information out there. And with the ability to scroll to the next video, golfers can get really confused as you go on, listen to many different ideas on the swing. So I think there's a lot of great stuff out there. The challenge is for that golfer to, how's the golfer going to filter all that stuff? It's going to be challenging. So I think that the direction that I'm kind of seeing golf go is students or golfers are going to start migrating to one instructor or one group of instructors. And that's where I think things like the Stack and Tilt network is really good, where you can go listen to hundreds of instructors and get a very similar lesson. Or if you look for instructors who've been through Scott Couch's certification, I think Scott has, I think, 32 million pros he's certified right now. And like, you go talk to
32
those guys,
million? That's
so
a lot
many.
of
He has tons.
32 million. What?
That might have exaggerated a bit. But I think that, if you take a lesson from one of those guys, you're going to hear some good information and start hitting the ball really well. And I think that if you can call them like we used to, like the camps, I think you're going to find people start migrating toward the camps of information they like, and stick with that. And that's something I think is going to be pretty good. But those golfers are going to have to, sift their way through all the stuff to find out what they want to listen to and who they want to learn from.
I mean, you go into talking about the camps, right? So, Ben Plummer, I have a lot of respect for them and I admire them. And he's actually spoke to Nick Clearwater, my buddy for many years. I think he's been number 3 at Stack and Tilt, right? Forever. I don't
Yeah,
know.
for sure.
Yeah, so we spoke recently and we're going to do an interview. But way back when, I spoke to him and I said, the fact that you branded this thing, it's probably been more detrimental to them over the years than anything else. Because if you stood there and watched Andy and Mike's videos and other stuff, and again, I did a video there where I said they were the real disruptors. They came up and said, hey, this stuff's wrong. And they were on Charlie Rose. And they helped a lot of people. But I think that they got branded as method teachers when, you yourself are saying, well, I'm going to deal with the person in front of me, right? And we're all unique individuals. And they have a lot to offer and a lot of information. And I think a lot of that came about with the advent of the internet. Now you got haters. You know what I mean? Sean Foley
I think
stuff.
so too.
From all.
I think that the best part of Stack and Tilt is their resilience on continually saying the same thing, and they're still here. They're still doing it. Their network is growing. The Stack and Tilt schools are the biggest schools I've ever seen in the world. I'm not sure if, Jim McLean does more, but Andy does so many golf schools. And then, like you just mentioned, Nick Clearwater, who's vice president of Golf Tech, right? So all of that Stack and Tilt information through Nick Clearwater has gone down through the Golf Tech chain of education. So if you look at Golf Tech being the number 1 lesson provider in North America, and then you look at Stack and Tilt being the biggest golf schools, you start to see a major, major influence from what they said in 2008 or 2009 to what we are doing today.
I would say so, and not just that. With I think at one point there was a guy named Tapio from Denmark, I believe, who had a 4D measuring thing. Mm-hmm. I put this out there. The first guy to call me was Clearwater. Hey, what's going on with this? I want to know. It's it. So, and that I'm saying that in a good sense, because with Golf Tech now, they're able to quantify scientifically what they're saying, right? So there's no debate. And then I heard he was telling me, or he was saying at one point that they're going to get a database of 100,000 swings, or I don't know how many swings they were going to have just to compare it. And, yeah, I mean, they've been, and now Scott Cox, where does he come from? I mean, I'm looking at this.
Yeah, he lives down 20 minutes from me in Toronto. He's active in teaching some really, really good players. I think most of the stuff he does is online. I believe he's just started an awesome online platform. And, anybody that has ever asked me, what should I do as an instructor to get better? I mentioned going to see Andy and then taking Scott's program online. I think that the blend of the two it's seamless. Like it's this, I don't want to say the same. It's seamless. It blends great, but nobody has taken like golf instruction for an instructor and tailored a program like 1.0, 2.0. I want to say he's at 9 or 10 right now, 0.0, different variations and versions of what he's doing. And it just gets better and better. it's phenomenal stuff. If you're an instructor, you have to listen to what he says.
I mean, I see a lot of him and on social media, and I see a lot of the guys. I'm Scott Cox certified.
Yeah.
I just, I see. I don't know what his background is, and maybe I should interview him. Maybe he'd meet
So,
me
I
with him.
mean, to give you some quick idea, like he developed Mac Hughes from a junior. You know,
Matt
Mac's won
Hughes.
a GA Tour. I'm trying to think of other pros he's worked with. Lots of stuff with Grant Waite.
I'm sure he's worked with a lot of pros, but he has the street cred from his peers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So when people come, you're who you are, and other PGA or teaching professionals come to see you, to seek you out for your knowledge, then that means you've got something to offer. Because he's not catering to he's catering to a captive audience, an educated consumer, right?
Yeah,
So
big time.
that's why I would say that there's something to it. There's more to it than a guy like me could see it, but guys want to get Scott Cox certified, and there must be a reason for it. I was just curious, So yeah. So when are you heading back up to the Great North?
I have 4 more days here, taking off the end of the week, back to Toronto for a couple weeks. I've got a pro member down in Kiowa, end of March. Might go check out Augusta in April as well. So I'm looking forward to the next 6 weeks.
You're living high on the hog, brother.
It's
So
great.
when you're gonna come down here so we can see you next time you're down here, you gotta reach out. I mean, come on.
I will be. We have the Ontario PGA Pro-Am in November. I will be back in November.
Oh, it's a pro-am.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I was in the Met.
Casa de Campo runs awesome pro-ams. They have 3 or 4 every year, and then this one is an Ontario PGA, so all the pros in Ontario find 3 amateurs and bring them down.
Yeah, I was gonna come down with the Metropolitan PGA section. They had one at Casa de Campo. I used to play in the Casa de Campo Open, the national champ, the Dominican Amateur Championships are also at Casa. But now Teeth of the Dog is getting redone, completely ripped. They completely ripped out everything. They're going to redo it. So this year we're going to do it on the Links, Die 4, and La Romana Country Club. I think are the 3 clubs.
That's right. Yeah.
They're going to have the Dominican Amateurs. Yeah. So it's been great catching up with you.
Yeah, thanks for this. This is awesome. It's nice to see you're doing these podcasts again. I love the ones you've done so far with Alex Moore, with Andreas. You mentioned you just did one with John Erickson, so I'm going to have to catch that one too.
Yeah.
I've always liked these. These have been great.
The scenery is cool.
Oh, yeah.
So it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Nick. And, we're going to wish you continued success. And like I said, next time you're down in town, even if I'm not, just give me a ring and, you'll stay a few extra days.
I will. So I'll be in touch for sure.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
All right. Bye.